Fnatic, they're going to start mixing things up here. The Thresh is banned away. Once again, of course, they are on the blue side. They will have the first pick available to themselves. Let's see how it all goes down.
Now, if they're banning away the Thresh, then they definitely have something like a Janna in mind, maybe even a Karma. Unsensor supports are likely where they're going to be heading if they want to take this kind of playmaker away from IgNar, given that he has not yet played it in this series. Definitely targeted, given that that's they have a plan in mind, basically. Now, Misfits, they're going to keep things very similar, to what they've done so far, and they're likely going to ban away the Jarvan and the Elise along with what they've been doing so far throughout the rest of this series.
Okay, back to the Orianna bans, but remember on the Syndra in game number 1, PoE had no trouble whatsoever, so Fnatic digging back to old strategies here as Misfits. They've kept it the same. The Kalista banned away. If history follows, we'll see the Jarvan ban next.
It does make you wonder what Fnatic have been preparing during the last 2 weeks. I feel like they've definitely done a lot of prep, but you know, we heard from some of the vocal members of Fnatic that they were very confident coming into this series, and I feel like that Misfits, they've just surprised a lot of people. They too have done a lot of their own prep. They fixed so many of their issues, and just so many teams during the regular season did not play against this Misfits. This was not the Misfits that they are used to, and it's like a completely different team that is just steamrolling ahead of a lot of the top competition that we have in Europe right now.
Yeah, I mean, hard to see that one coming, in all honesty, and they are currently undefeated in this playoffs. 3-0 over the Unicorns of Love, 2-0 over Fnatic. A team they haven't beaten in a single game since the spring split, the regular spring split. I mean, that's just incredible. Now, Lucian, Tristana, those are all banned away. So things changing up just a little bit.
Now, I'd love to see a Xayah or a Rakan come out from Fnatic. I love this adaptation because now they want to get themselves a powerful bottom lane. Misfits, they have to answer with the Xayah. They cannot afford to give that duo lane away unless they have a strategy planned. We talked about the Thresh being banned away. It is considered a good pick by many pros into the Rakan, and this means that Fnatic, they have a lot of advantages right now with this early rotation, and they're in an already bigger advantage compared to what they were in previous drafts.
So getting themselves the Rakan, of course, it has given the Xayah away over to Misfits Gaming. Now, do we also see the Gnar being picked up for Alphari? He's played it in both games. They've first rotated it in both of those, and the answer is yes.
A lot of European teams have been struggling to find any kind of answer for the Gnar. We did see Gnar come out in the finals of the LCK earlier on today, and that was always very enjoyable to watch. Won't spoil any of the results, but we did see it come out, and it was a lot of fun. Meanwhile, here in Europe, we're going to be seeing it once more from Alphari. I feel like that it has been one of his good picks, something that he's had a lot of comfort on.
But talk about good picks, man. Elise was left open. Broxah snapping that one right up.
I mean, my bad for not mentioning that, because that has been banned in every single game so far, and it is one of Broxah's staple picks. Now, if you look at the playmaking potential on Fnatic, they have the Syndra in the middle lane, they have the Rakan, they have the Elise for early pressure. We talked about how Misfits so far have been getting early leads throughout this series. Fnatic have said, all right, we've had enough of that. We will be the ones to get those early leads. We're going to pick those early game champions, and we're going to be the ones to snowball this game and reverse sweep.
Well, Fnatic taking a gamble, of course, on that. If you try to play all for the early game and you can't do it, that's always going to fail you. But this is a team that has relied very effectively on early pressure out of that jungle especially, and being able to make plays. They've given themselves the tools to do it. As we enter ban phase 2, Sivir's off the board once more.
Now, this could be a big gain for Fnatic, because with AD carries likely to be banned away from the side of Misfits, it means that Fnatic can get themselves the Renekton. Send the Renekton up into the top lane. You've got a huge amount of kill threat with the Renekton Elise combo. Very, very common, very effective at being able to create these early leads. And even if this Galio is a flex, which is unlikely to be, more likely in the mid, but of course the Galio's, the Gnar's already locked in. What am I talking about? It can work very effectively against the Gnar in the early game, especially when he's in that mini form.
Yes, indeed. So Cho'Gath banned away. Misfits not going to take any chances on that one, so we might just see that Renekton now. 15 seconds to go. Fnatic ban out the Alistar. They focus on the support, trying to get IgNar off the playmakers. Does he go back to the Blitzcrank in this case?
I think it would be risky to go to the Blitzcrank. Taric is a possible option for him. Just thinking about some of the other supports that you could go for.
Yeah.
The he is rather limited right now with Thresh, Tom, and Alistair all taken away. Braum, I think, is the other big one that he's very likely to pick up. Means that you will be playing a little bit more defensively. But it looks like Fnatic, they still have a lot of confidence in Rekkles, and I want to emphasize, he's not been having bad games. It's not like he's playing the champion poorly. He's been landing a lot of great arrows, but it's just not resulting in anything. Playing that champion into a Xayah specifically means that hitting that onto Hans Summer becomes near impossible, because we even saw Hans Summer kill Maxlore because he used his ulti to dodge the Ashe arrow, which ended up hitting Maxlore, who was behind.
Yeah, the Sia mate. But there's a lot of big tanks here. The Rekkles can at least stop short for a few moments, and maybe that'll be the game plan as he fires all the arrows down across the way. Now, this is another matchup that Fnatic could look to take. Seconds ticking down, and Camille is locked in for sOAZ.
So they picked themselves up a split pusher in the form of Camille. Many do consider Camille to be a decent answer to the Gnar because you can trade very effectively when he's in mini form, but also the shields that you get that resist AD, very effective when you're trying to retreat from the Gnar as well, because that's where he's at his most dangerous.
All right, last pick over to the Misfits side. Timer is up, and it is the Morgana locked in on their side now. Seems like the vast majority of that damage is going to come from Hans Summer this game.
Unless we see the AP Galio.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's always a caveat.
There's always the caveat to that. Jizuke bringing that one out. I do agree with you, Pyra. I think that damage is a little bit lacking on the side of Misfits. Certainly not the case for Fnatic, for damage threats, but they are very reliant on getting a bit of an early snowball. You want this Syndra to be able to get an early lead over the Galio. Otherwise, if he's allowed to free farm, he's going to be this big meat shield that's just going to soak up all that burst. The Ashe, very squishy on the backline. Low mobility carries on the side of Fnatic too. That Gragas Gnar Galio combo, that's pretty lethal, especially how easy it is to dive onto the backline when you have the hero's entrance, you have the Mega Gnar, you have the Gragas, all kinds of crazy stuff. So you want Camille to be ahead of the Gnar. That's why getting her ahead is important. You want the Syndra to be ahead in the early game so you can try and force picks and skirmishes. A lot of emphasis on Fnatic getting an early lead this game, which, to be fair to Broxah, he has done a great job multiple times of when he's able to get his hands on this Elise.
Well, we'll see if he can channel his regular season performance up against Misfits, who are 2-0 against Fnatic, a team that many people consider to be the easy, far and away favorites to take the European throne back in the summer split. Will they hang on here? The early game will certainly tell, as Misfits Gaming, all eyes on the prize, but they will have to last through this blitz of a Fnatic game. Game 3 loaded up onto Summoner's Rift. Tension on all the players' faces, and let's see how it all goes down.
A lot on the line in this game, Pyra. Spot in Paris. Fnatic, they've been so dominant during the regular season. Misfits, they have struggled. And you can see the Misfits fans in the audience.
Getting riled up.
They certainly are. They know that they are close.
But the Fnatic fans fire right back, of course.
You can never count the Fnatic fans out.
2 games down, still faithful. No Fairweather fans in this audience. And for good reason. Fnatic have shown, even under some of the most difficult of circumstances, this year is looked like their year. So effectively, playing incredibly well across the board against everyone else in Europe. They are really excited, man.
Yes,
Holy
man.
moly.
So we have to look at what this means, Pyra, in terms of championship points. It's very important to recognize that on your screen you will see the minimum number of points that the teams will get if they were to finish where they were. If they ended up losing, if Fnatic lose this game, it means that they get 90 points. But if Misfits win, it means that their minimum number of points will force Fnatic into the gauntlet. They will not be able to qualify on points. And that is huge, Pyra. Misfits could be the team that acts as the denying, the wall, the blocker, to prevent an easy road for Fnatic to make it to Worlds.
Yeah, and only giving them at best a 3rd seed. Now, they would be in the final stage of that gauntlet in all likely scenarios, but it's not just these 2 teams that have a lot at stake for this matchup. If Misfits Gaming actually are able to close this series out, they put G2 eSports into Worlds guaranteed, because they would be the only team left that'd be able to qualify on the points.
Wow. So G2, they're rooting for Misfits right now.
Yeah. Mad world, isn't it?
There is a lot on the line here. And I'm sure a lot of the G2 players that are watching at home, they didn't even realize this, and they're like, oh, this is a great opportunity for us. We can go to Worlds right now.
I hope they would realize that. Our system's not that bad.
Oh man, but this is exciting. Misfits, they can play huge spoiler today. And the Fnatic fans, they're going to start to feel worried. They show a lot of support. They know that they can be faithful in their team. But both these teams, they really want to make it. Performing well in Europe is the first step, but Rekkles has said in multiple interviews that for him to feel like he has returned to form, he wants to compete on that international stage once more.
Yep. Feel all the better if they were able to overcome, make it to the finals. He's had a couple of championships under his belt and some appearances on top, but we got to check back in with the way this game is unfolding. Both junglers, not so much invading from Maxlore's side, more like cautiously ward checking. But Broxah has no qualms about making moves into the enemy jungle. With double buffs now, he looks to go for an early gank down bottom. There is a ward that would spot him down there. Let's see if he's able to move fast enough. Waiting and baiting. There we go. Ward's out, race against the clock. Here he comes. Oh, flash out from IgNar, but it's Hans Sama they find the damage onto. He's got flash, instantly uses it, repel, up and out, and there is first blood.
And this is the early lead that Fnatic needed to get themselves. Broxah, he holds true to the playstyle that made him recognized here in Europe. When he first came to the LCS, it was the Lee Sin, the Elise, that allowed Fnatic to get a lot of these early leads. His mechanics were considered top tier. And now he's demonstrating that he still holds on to those mechanics. He can play more than just tanks. He can get his team the early advantages to start the snowball. And now Fnatic kicked off already with first blood in Game 3.
It's going to be a big confidence booster, as well as bolstering their purses a little bit. Broxah, with the first blood gold, will be able to go back, buy things a little faster than Maxlore. We could see in the previous games when he was able to get ahead. Still some fantastic effort from him, and here's the play again.
So IgNar and Hans Sama, really good sidestep and an early flash from IgNar. Unfortunately, the Black Shield does little to nothing this late into the game. There's no real CC left to block. You can see the Cocoon is already used. They could just burst him down. Broxah with a very early level 3, and with Maxlore playing Gragas, couldn't really counter gank. And that means that Fnatic, they get their bottom lane ahead for the first time in this series.
Yeah, and there's the roaming boots picked up by Broxah. He's going to be able to get all over this map, and if you're Misfits, you have to be concerned that you might be next.
Now, the TP was used from PowerOfEvil. Once he hits level 6, they could look to try and make a play on one of the side lanes. Always something exciting about Galio is how easy it is for him to interfere. Now Maxlore going for a bit of an invade.
All right, so he spots Broxah. Doesn't want to tangle with him, though. Level 4 versus level 4. And I'll just be happy to have eyes on. Jesiz was going for a bit of a roam himself, and now he's back into lane. Things have settled down a little bit, but Fnatic, step 1 of the early game plan is already complete.
But now he needs to continue it. Yeah, they need to continue it. Exactly right, Pyro. I want to see Broxah get sOAZ a little bit ahead in this top lane as well. Once he hits level 6, when Alphari's in that mini-Gnar form, you really want to try and set up an early gank. You want to try and get this Camille to a point where he's unstoppable in the 1 versus 1 split push. Gnar won't be able to deal with him because that's what Fnatic need. They very much rely on this early snowball and early lead.
But meanwhile, in the mid, in the bot, that seems to be the focus at the moment. Broxah is going to run smack dab into Maxlore. Turns around, doesn't want to fight him either. Ward's going to be cleared out, and Maxlore's doing his best to, try and at least be the same level of omnipresent as Broxah is able to really deliver, but it's kind of difficult against the Moby Boots. IgNar face checking in. Cocoon is black shielded, and now Maxlore's shown up in the bottom side once more. Don't look like they have kill pressure, though. Fnatic know exactly when they need to back off.
But Fnatic don't actually know that Maxlore is here just yet. They don't have vision of him, and PowerOfEvil, he's actually making his way to the top side.
Here's the roam. Alphari, there's the ward out, though, so sOAZ knows exactly what's happening, but there's a lot of minions here. PoE just sends the Winds of War. He takes a scenic tour of top lane.
Well, he saw Caps and Broxah in the top side. Remember these 2 wards that Maxlore put in the jungle earlier on. Those were great for being able to spot out Broxah moving through the blue side of Fnatic's jungle. And PowerOfEvil was like, you know what? No, I think I'm fine. I've just come for a spot of tea with Alphari. And we'll be like, we'll enjoy our British Sunday afternoon, and then we will carry on with our day. Toodle pip, back to reading my book in the middle lane.
I'm going to pretend I understood all of those words. But for Misfits, this is a lot of the game plan, relying on Maxlore to try and get somebody ahead. If it's not PowerOfEvil, we thought about Hans Sama, but Alphari, you mentioned it in the pick and ban, that's a crucial lane to try and get ahead, especially against a Camille with that carry potential.
I think it's very important for both sides, at the very least for Maxlore, to mitigate any kind of early snowball in the top lane. I will think that Alphari will be a key point. He's been pretty consistent in this playoff run as well. Alphari as an individual has had great performances, and I feel like even though he's not been the superstar carry in this series so far, he's still been very consistent, and this is a comparison between his regular season and his quarterfinal performance, so you don't have the semi-final stats in there just yet, but you can just see how even with less jungle pressure, he just seems to be doing so much more than what he was doing during the regular season. So it's great to see this level of development, a bit of a return to form to what he was back in spring.
Yeah, and everyone kind of had their turn to be the big carry in that Misfits versus Unicorn series. For Alphari, that especially did come in Game 2 when they put him on the Rumble. And it's worth noting, he kind of dumpstered Vizicachi. That was the MVP of spring. So while sOAZ may be on the all-star team, at the moment, the top laner of Misfits is definitely holding his own up against a very strong opponent.
Certainly is. So let's see how he can deal with two opponents, with Broxah
That's just not fair,
hanging
man.
around the top side. But Maxlore is there as well, reading the map pretty well. He doesn't have that deep vision in. He's only got one ward on his tracker's knife right now. We'll see if he can get a bit of a gank down onto sOAZ.
Spots the ward, though, so sOAZ knows he's here as well. They want the 2v2. It doesn't look like it. But, of course, junglers tracking each other effectively through the motions on the map. Alphari looking for a hyper proc auto, sOAZ easily able to sidestep this one, and it's a tense dance here.
They both know where each of the junglers are. You can see PowerOfEvil even moving up because he wants to use his ultimate. Broxah. They both know. They don't know that each of them know.
Oh no. There's the ward. Alphari's almost got me. Yeah, this is just... I feel like this is going to come to nothing, but it's just a whole lot of movements.
Just two junglers sitting there being like, is he going to gank? Is he going to gank? No, I think he's going to gank. I'm going to counter gank his gank.
But then the counter gank never comes.
Yeah, and then yeah. You can't gank a gank that didn't gank.
All right, let's talk about bottom lane. My head hurts.
So PowerOfEvil now. Notice how he's always moving into the river, just slightly dipping out of vision from caps. He's always like telling the team, whoa, 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 whoa. Galio, no, see him. Careful. So that forces the side laners to immediately back off. They realize there's a big threat. We have to be careful of it. Let's disengage. And just dipping into this darkness always poses that threat that you always have to respect. So I love this very subtle play that PowerOfEvil is making right now in the middle lane.
Yeah. Galio, of course, can definitely be a big factor in turning team fights. His ultimate allowing him to get in and get the knockups to stop out the Fnatic damage, which they're not lacking for at all this game. Down in the bottom lane, it just continues to be the farm fest, but fairly even on that affair. BF sword picked up by both parties, and the Caulfield's Warhammer is going to be separating Rekkles from Hans Sama, who, of course, was killed down over the early gank. And look at this, Broxah waiting in the wings. He's going to get some backup from Jesiz. PowerOfEvil is going to be the champion they target, but he just as punches back to tower.
He's out. No real threat now. Two members of Misfits in the bottom lane know they have the numbers advantage, so IgNar going to use this opportunity to get a bit of vision down. Rekkles forced to back away from the tower. There's a bit of trading happening up top.
Bold hook shot, and the Gnar ultimate is dodged out. sOAZ with the Hextech ultimatum, but he's still going to have to tangle, and in comes the Galio, flashed away. Alphari still has his. It looks like that's another hook shot coming off cooldown. sOAZ, cool under fire, makes his escape.
But Maxlore is on the top side as well. They want to continue the dive. They want to try and get this early tower.
Oh, he doesn't
and
know.
sOAZ, I think he's already accepted his fate, or is he just going to disengage?
Trying to walk
he's
out.
out.
No.
He's out.
All right, they give it to him, but this might be the first tower. Teleport back to mid. Broxah and Caps are going to be pushing at it as the cocoon lands. PoE, though, he's still got plenty of MR to tank through.
Good play there from PowerOfEvil, holding on to the tower, clearing out that wave as well. Now sOAZ TPing in to top lane. Sorry, I thought he was TPing into the dragon, trying to make a play. That was not the case.
They do want early game pressure, right? I mean, it's still a slim lead because it's mostly off that first blood that Fnatic have gotten. And it seems like Misfits have been able to stem a little bit of this aggressive set of movements that Fnatic are bringing out.
The thing about this comp, right, is for Fnatic, they have multiple damage threats, which is a big deal. Because in the late game, against all these tanks, Fnatic will actually have a bit of an advantage, because in drawn-out fights, when they're playing a little bit sporadically, the fights are really spread out, sOAZ can very easily get onto the backline and just kind of shut down Hans Summer, keep everyone else out, and then there's no damage left for Misfits, so they're always going to win out in the end, as sOAZ getting very low.
Oh, it's the bait. He hops in to the cocoon, but it's the double bait as Maxlore comes in, throws the party barrel. That's a repel up, but there is nowhere for Broxah to go. And the spider is going to get squished. Here comes PowerOfEvil to finish off sOAZ. The winds of war are the winds of death for that mid laner, and sOAZ, oh, he done goofed.
You can look at the frustration on his face. That was supposed to be the counter gank from Broxah, but the counter gank of the counter gank came in from Maxlore, and they were able to win out on the 2 versus 2. PowerOfEvil came in just to get a little bit of something back. He used his flash to get the kill, but overall advantage is gained for Misfits, and now this Elise is going to lose a little bit of pressure in the early game. So let's just see. Alphari has no vision of what's going on in that lane. sOAZ just used his dash to bait Alphari in because he's like, oh no, I'm out of escapes. What am I going to do? Alphari knows this is going to happen. He knows he can commit, and therefore, because Maxlore is lying in wait, PowerOfEvil is already making his way up the river. The control wall was there. sOAZ couldn't see him, and then PowerOfEvil just flashes over the wall to secure the kill.
Easy peasy. And it's just indicative that Misfits in this series, they have got Fnatic's number, and yeah, that has got to be frustrating if you're Broxah. This whole team, they're down 2 games in this series. Their early game was stymied here, and you can see the difference between Fnatic's season and this series alone.
They have not had the same level of performance in this semifinal that they have had from their regular season.
However, see if they can turn things in their favor back around. IgNar caught out trying to get a few wards down, and Jesiz is going to be able to sweep away the last of his health bar. Fnatic, they do come right back, but they've got to find more if they want to take this game.
IgNar not bothering to use his flash because he knows that Broxah has the repel. He thought that if he landed the binding onto Broxah, then maybe he could have flashed away. Unfortunately, he couldn't land it fast enough. Now here's Maxlore.
Oh boy, sOAZ runs right into him, and the Blast Cone already used. Hextech ultimatum's down, but there's 2 inside. The taunt lands, the barrel knocks him back. sOAZ, one more tack sweep to wave goodbye is all he can do, but while they were busy, Fnatic, they were pushing on the bottom lane.
Now that was the first tower of the game, but Alphari's going to be able to get top. The rest of Misfits are going to be able to get mid, and sure, they lose their bot tower, but what they gain off the back of it is better. Depends if Fnatic can stop this push.
Now can they? Looks like Justice Punch completed. Even though PowerOfEvil tanked the cocoon in the back, Alphari will still be able to fire down this tower. So Misfits Gaming, at the end of it all, still finding themselves out of that early game, dead even on the gold. The Fnatic game plan, it's in trouble.
It really is. But again, I want to emphasize, like, Misfits are relying pretty heavily on Hans Summer doing well. So far, he's been fine. He's a little bit behind Rekkles because of the early first blood, but aside from that, he's been holding his own in terms of farm, in terms of experience, but he is really the only major damage threat. Now, there are a lot of squishy members on Fnatic, so even though they are tanks, they can build a little bit of damage, and they will still do fine. But in an extended trade, these damage dealers on Fnatic will just hurt a lot more. So again, in the late game, Fnatic's composition will be fine. It's just very much about this mid-game portion, which is the majority of the game. Between 20 to about 35 minutes is a big period where Misfits just have the stronger comp. They can force all of the fights. They'll hit about 2 to 3 item spikes that Fnatic, they won't be able to shred through these tanks because they won't have that level of penetration just yet. And so the onus is on Fnatic to be able to get that early lead, hold on to it through that rough mid-game period or snowball it, and then transition, basically win the game through having a strong snowball. Or they now need to delay, they need to stall, they need to wait for the real late game where they get like 4 items where they know because they have naturally more damage dealers, they stand a much better chance of winning out on these fights.
Seems like both options a little bit difficult for the Fnatic team right now. And I'm wondering if Misfits might have a few more sources of damage than maybe appears. I mean, we talked a little bit about it kind of jokingly at the start, but what if PowerOfEvil starts trending towards a little bit of damage now that he does have his Abyssal Mask up?
I don't think he will.
Nah.
I think he's just going to go full tank. He wants to absorb all the Syndra damage, so whenever the fights occur, he's literally either going to jump with the Broxah and caps, taunt them and go, hit me.
So it's the Hans Summer show.
Yeah, basically, they just want to keep Hans Summer alive.
I do love that
show.
He's having a great season.
Yeah, well, he's having a at the start of the season.
A little
I thought
slow,
it was a little slow.
It had to build up, and then it just moved really, really fast.
Yeah, I think the last few episodes have been really good.
Excellent. Yeah, tons of action all over the place. All right, Rift Herald's popped. This should be enough to finish off the tower pretty easily.
Splunk. Outplayed.
All right. Fnatic starting to lose a little bit of ground here as Misfits have the tower advantage 2-1. Oh, another charge for the Rift Herald. He was doing double time.
I will, in my final moments,
it's a true hero.
hurt the tower. She's
a true hero, excuse me.
She gets close to the tower, gives away her life in exchange for the team. Misfits will be eternally grateful. Now the game has slowed down a little bit, Mr. Pyro.
Just a little bit here, Vedius, but I mean, for Misfits, you've got to be riding such an incredible high right now with the fact that you are 2-0 up against Fnatic, one of the most historically successful teams in the European LCS. Not a lot of people gave you a chance to even make it out of the quarterfinals, but you've not lost a game yet. I mean, that's got to feel incredible.
I agree with you. I think that's very true, but in the game right now, I think that they're not even thinking about who their opponents are. Maxlore says he even removes all the nameplates when he's in game because he doesn't want to think about who his opposition is. They're just another opponent that he has to get through. And I think that's a big deal for Misfits to just concentrate on the game, what they need to do to win. The thing about this team is they've demonstrated multiple times that they are so good at playing towards their win conditions. And for this composition, it's about trying to find those fights once again, the 5v5s. They have a really solid front line. They have Summer, who's working towards his second item. And once he's completed that, that is when Misfits should be pressing the go button. Fighting around Baron, fighting around these Drakes. Being super proactive and forcing Fnatic to no longer be playing along the side lanes, no longer be trying to find these small skirmishes, instead being forced into the full 5v5 where they know they can win just like they did in Game 2.
Well, might be in for another skirmish actually as Alphari with the Gnar still stacking is going to force sOAZ away. You see Maxlore there. He goes in for a dash and flash, and that's the Hextech ultimatum. IgNar follows all the way through. Exhaust spent, everything burned. The barrel knocks him back in. He is going nowhere, trying to get back to that base, but Maxlore says not today.
You can see the frustration on sOAZ's face. Multiple members were sent down to kill him. I feel like we're seeing the essence of Tilt right now. Misfits are just shutting him down. 0-3. He is not being allowed to be this split pusher. The rest of Fnatic are just focusing on the rest of the map. They get 2 turrets, take the tier 1 in the top lane and the tier 1 in the middle lane. And now they've been able to set up vision around Baron. So overall, this wasn't the worst trade in the world for Fnatic. They're still able to get something out of the sacrifice of sOAZ.
Yeah, but that was a very committed dive all the way behind tier 2, and sOAZ used everything he had to try and escape. Even Hansama coming in.
Good patience there from Maxlore to not use his barrel too early, but also great binding from IgNar. sOAZ used his flash just at the last second to make sure that he got out of range from the ultimate of IgNar, but it just wasn't enough. He flashed in a way that allowed IgNar to bypass the minions, land the binding. Maxlore gets the knockback, and then they're able to get themselves that kill.
And when that many people want you dead, there's not a whole lot you can do, unfortunately, even on a pick like the Camille.
So a really small thing here. We talked a lot about lack of damage from the side of Misfits. Notice the jungle itemization that Maxlore has picked up for himself. He's decided to go for the runic echoes instead of the classic Cinderhulk. He's adding a little bit more AP damage to the roster. He knows PowerOfEvil is just going to go full tank. You can see from the Frozen Heart and the Abyssal Mask. You're also going to have Alphari going for the Black Cleaver too. And so you're just going to have little bits of damage spread across, which in extended fights will definitely help Misfits a lot more, alongside relying on the main damage dealer of Hansama.
It's going to certainly supplement what they're trying to get done. Now as we are in the thick of this mid-game where Misfits are more powerful, we start to see where they decide to throw their weight. It's the split push, the 1-3-1 right now. PowerOfEvil holding the wave up top. Alphari, he pushed it in down bottom. Nothing else for them to take on the map for the time being. So they'll just be content to secure out the vision. It is a little slow. Misfits not going to take any unnecessary risks until they know the odds are very in their favor. But look at where they're moving right now, Vedius. The Baron is nearby. However, Fnatic are mobilizing to the defense.
Would be super risky to start the Baron right now. Hansama hasn't even completed his static Shiv yet. So I think they should be a little more patient. Instead, they're just getting control around it, forcing Fnatic to come and face check. or trying to have priority over the mid lane, which Fnatic have for the time being because the more immediate objective is available, Cloud Drake. 35 seconds, Fnatic have chosen to invest their vision towards that side. But look, there is a ward in the back. Oh, this is very risky from Misfits. Fnatic, they know this is happening.
Yes, they do. Full vision right now as Baron has started very early. Fnatic moving to come in. sOAZ not in the picture, but he's got the TP up and available. Fnatic, it looks like they want to hit the go button here, but Misfits, they've hit the brakes. Got the TP out. Let's see if they can take the fight. Barrel, they've isolated Caps with Jesiz, and the barrel knocks them back. But look at the damage from the Scout of the Week. The quickness comes on. Jesiz can't quite find a target until the end. As Caps finishes off Maxlore. PoE forced to flash away. A Featherstorm comes out, but sOAZ dodges the damage as he takes down IgNar, and everything is falling apart for the Misfits. This is the fight they needed, but Alphari trying to salvage it, but no! A double kill for Rekkles, and it's Baron time.
And this is why it was a risky play for Misfits. Their damage dealer doesn't even do damage yet. Fnatic have multiple damage threats that are still in that early to mid game portion. They have completed items. They're more than ready to fight. And if you challenge Fnatic, they are more than happy to take it. So the TP comes out from sOAZ very far away from the fight. Misfits think that with the numbers advantage, they can make this fight happen. But a great ultimate onto Maxlore forces him out of the fight extremely quickly. One of their big frontliners is already taken out because he's not that tanky this early into the game. He didn't go Cinderhole. And when the first tank is gone, Hansama now is too afraid to play around the front line because he just doesn't have one. So the rest of Fnatic can just steamroll through the rest of the members. Alphari decides to jump in and see if he can get anything back. And you can just see the elation on Broxah's face as Fnatic have finally gotten themselves a solid gold lead.
And that has to be relief as well as elation from a team that, you know, demonstrating visible frustration. 2 games down when you are the expected favorites, a big chip on this team's shoulder to, you know, really complete the renaissance, make their way into Worlds as a #1 or #2 seed. And now they've got a chance to keep their hopes alive. With the gold lead, that you said, they can start charging down the line. And we've talked a lot about how Fnatic know how to play from behind. Well, guess what? They can sure as hell play from ahead.
Misfits. They've now completed the major damage dealing item for Hansama, but it's a little bit too late as Rekkles level 14 on his AD carry. 2 items completed of his Infinity Edge. Talk about damage dealing AD carries. Rekkles is more than capable of living up to the job. Fnatic, a lot more confidence. Arrow comes out.
Splits the uprights, but Fnatic, they don't really even need to get the full engage. Instead, they can just peck away at this turrets here. Misfits, they're trying to hold on. But it looks like Fnatic, they'll back away as they've lost out on the minion wave. Still perfectly happy to just keep the waves pushing multiple lanes. sOAZ going down to the bottom side. No TP for him. Misfits wanted to pull the trigger. They could find themselves in a 5v4, but you see they're not super confident. They already took 1 unnecessary risk. No sense in doing it again, but they're going to have to react to sOAZ on this split push. This is where it comes alive. He's starting to get his revenge from earlier in the game.
Fnatic, they're playing the map extremely well right now. Misfits, they're being forced underneath their tower because they only have a limited amount of wave clear. They're doing what they can, but that is a lot of AP damage being used against the very resistant minions that are Baron empowered and making Misfits' life difficult. So Fnatic now with a 6,000 gold lead. The best position they've been in all series long. The fans are getting excited. They can see the return to form of their squad. Now the question is, can Fnatic close things out? I mean, things are looking great if you're a Fnatic member, because you know that Misfits are relying on Hansama to be this big damage dealer. Your AD carry does a lot more damage than he does. You have a lot more damage threats, and these tanks, at this point in the game, with this kind of a lead, can pretty much be ignored. And so Fnatic, they can force any kind of fight they want. If they want to, they can play the side lane too, because that Camille is now very strong as well. Very few options are going to be left for Misfits to be able to deal with him.
Yeah. Fnatic, they can pretty much go any which way they want, which is why it's so difficult for Misfits to try and predict, try and defend. It seems like they would need to get a miracle of a pick. Fnatic would need to overextend in key places, and it doesn't seem like they're doing that. They've learned from past transgressions, and Misfits, they are scattered trying to defend on 3 lanes here. Coalescing back into 2. No one's up top to try and push things out, but it's 27 minutes. Fnatic Big confidence booster with that fight. We'll see if they can turn it into a victory and keep their hopes of a final alive.
And remember what this means. If Misfits win this series, they force Fnatic into the gauntlet. G2 auto-qualify for Worlds because there's no one to challenge them on points, and now Fnatic, they found a pick.
Oh boy, it was PoE, and he might be tanky, but is he tanky enough to try and survive? IgNar does manage to land a very easy Dark Binding, but they just don't have damage. Look at how little just about anything they landed onto sOAZ did. It just tickled him, and now it's Fnatic. They realize, okay, some cooldowns are burned. Maxlore's too low. He's got to get back to Fountain, try and heal his way up. The tempo advantage still in favor of Fnatic. Massive gold lead for them. As you rightly said, the best they've seen all series. Maybe it took 2.5 games, but back to form is definitely one way to put it.
Really fascinated by the decision by Hansama to rush the last Whisper, because the passive of it is that it penetrates bonus armor penetration, and when you look across the Fnatic squad, they don't have a huge amount of armor, Pyra. So I feel like just getting as much damage as possible, raw attack damage, would have been a lot more valuable for him to be that carry threat. But by going for the last Whisper, I feel like he's going to delay this a lot more, and now he's working towards that QSS. I feel like this build path is just going to make things even harder for Misfits if they want to win one of these big fights in the mid-game. And Fnatic, with their already big snowball, are in a prime position to try and break into the base. But I think they're going to wait for the Baron to respawn, and that's going to be the big point. If Misfits can win a fight there, then maybe they can turn this around. But Fnatic, they're in a much better position to do that right now.
Well, around the Baron pit's what really lost him out last time. And, you know, we were seeing in this series crisp, clear calling from the Misfits. Good communication, but it seems like it broke down in that fight. And that's not the only reason that they find themselves in this position now, but it certainly was a big contributing factor. And Fnatic, you know, they have been backs against the wall before. Especially a lot of these more veteran players, the sOAZs, the Rekkleses, they've been in positions where they seem down and out. But right here, right now, they're starting this comeback. They have such advanced positioning that they can afford to take, because Misfits cannot step too far out of their base lest they get caught and shut down by the incredible amount of damage that Fnatic are dishing.
Vision being set up in the top side of Misfits jungle. Jez is just going to go back, refresh his wards, complete the locket. Also get himself a few control wards too, to just reaffirm that Vision dominance that Fnatic have over Misfits right now. Misfits, though, they've continued to defend their base. No inhibitor towers or inhibitors have fallen. A lot of wave clear still coming out.
PowerOfEvil wants to force out on this engage, but Jesiz was on the back line. Let's see if they can keep it going. PowerOfEvil tanking through the rest, but Caps, he's coming in to see if he can get a deletion off. Instant exhaust is on. PowerOfEvil is going to get popped down. Rekkles, they just have more damage, and it's shining through. Jesiz on the front. Alphari and Mega trying to push him back, but sOAZ pins him against the wall, and it's 3 kills just like that.
And Misfits just don't have the damage. Fnatic feels so confident, forcing that fight in the jungle. Caps coming off from the flank. Rekkles safely behind both Broxah and sOAZ. Everything going the way of Fnatic and Pyra. I feel like we're going to a game 4.
Absolutely. I don't think there is any doubt in anyone's mind here right now. The death timers may not be that long, but Fnatic are inside the base, and they're going to be able to finish this job onto IgNar. Caps with his 3rd of the game. sOAZ just stopping Maxlore from the back, and it looks like they actually will hang on for a little while. As Fnatic want to make this cleaner, it's going to be a Baron attempt by them if they can take down Maxlore pretty easily. Should be able to do. And sOAZ realizes he's got plenty of shields left in the tank to make it happen. Max goes down, and that's one delayed ace, but the Baron is live.
Fnatic now know that the enemy team have no jungler. There is no smite to steal it away. A few members of Misfits are alive, but it's not going to matter in the face of this Fnatic squad. They're going to get themselves another Baron. They're going to reaffirm their control over this game. Starts the possibility of a reverse sweep.
Be a tough order for this team. It has been very, very visibly shaken by the results of the last 2 games. However, in this fight, they were the ones who reigned supreme. Look at those flank attempts. First Jesiz, then Caps.
Yeah, perfect. And Hansan, just keep your eye on him. Not hitting anyone, not hitting anyone. Oh, he lands 2 autos there. Still not quite able to hit anyone.
And then he's gone.
And then he's dead.
Yeah.
And Hansama's damage contribution in these fights just isn't there. You need PowerOfEvil to be one of those damage threats, so you need Alphari to be on a stronger carry. And the damage graph speaks for itself. Rekkles having so much more of an impact. He silenced me in his Ashe performance. I was a little skeptical, but well, actually, to be fair, I think we've said that his Ashe itself has been fine, but the team have not been able to make it work perfectly. But in combination with the Elise, they've certainly found a lot of success with it.
Yes, indeed. The fights just keep on going, but it's starting to look like more of a slaughter. However, can Misfits find a pick onto Jesiz? sOAZ unsure if he can really do a whole lot here. He allows him to battle dance away, but Misfits, they will not be chased back. Jesiz, he is going to fall. It's Alphari that gets the quick pickup, and now a Dark Binding is going to land. The hookshot not going to take him where he wants to go. It's sOAZ who's going down. Shut down by Hansama, but meanwhile, Caps is on the base.
Fnatic, they end up getting a little bit too cocky. They stay around in the enemy jungle, and they lose 2 members, but it will allow Caps to just push down this inhibitor. He's got to disengage, though. He is only on a Syndra, and those are Moby boots on the Morgana.
He has to be careful, however, he's still able to break into the base. PowerOfEvil tanking up as he finds Broxah sitting there, and that's a lot of damage, even through the MR. The Unleashed Power. He stays alive through it.
If it went for the stone plate, PowerOfEvil likely would have lost his life.
All right, so definitely a good thing he didn't build AP.
Yeah, probably a good thing. But maybe it could have been better because then they would have had damage to win some of those earlier fights.
Potato, potato.
So now, Hansama, he's completed his last Whisper. He has the QSS as well. And he still doesn't really do any damage. When you compare that across the aisle to Rekkles, level 17, Infinity Edge, Rapid Fire Cannon done on top of his already core build. That is a lot of damage.
sOAZ once again, though, stepping really far forward. However, Dark Binding doesn't land this time around. sOAZ might be caught out as PowerOfEvil tanks up the rest of Fnatic, and he's going down before he can make a hero's entrance. He makes a dead man's exit. Meanwhile, Caps still on this base. Misfits being run around this game as a tower gonna be saved here, but it's down in the bottom where they should have kept their eyes. Broxah, Jesiz, Rekkles just playing with their food here, and it has been a rough series for Fnatic, but they finally get some revenge. The quickness goes in, lands on to 2. Redemption, but doesn't look like it's very redeeming here for the Misfits as they are trying desperately to hang on to their base, but with super minions, Baron empowered, and a Fnatic bearing down on them. There is nothing you can do. Down they go, and Fnatic stay alive to force game 4.
Sighs of relief on the Fnatic squad. They will not be clean swept in this semi-final. Misfits, they lose their first game of the playoffs. And we do see Misfits being challenged a little bit more. Fnatic, they go for a slightly risky draft. But it was really the big mistake from Misfits that allowed Fnatic to come back. They tried to force that Baron play. Fnatic turned the fight around so beautifully in their favor. They punished the overstep Maxlore. They burst down some of the front line, and they very quickly transitioned that into a Baron and a clean snowball. Fnatic demonstrating once more that they know how to punish the mistakes of their opposition, but also I feel like we're seeing that for Misfits, we just need more carry threats. We need to have, you can't put all of the onus on just Hansama. He certainly has been stepping up, but with the composition that he was put into, a little bit too much pressure, and after that early gank bot from Broxah, his life became very difficult in that game.
Kind of put themselves into a rough situation, and as a result, Fnatic, they stay alive, taking 1 game. So a monumental victory to stay alive in this series. So here are Shox and the crew to break it all down.
Thank you very much, Pyra. Indeed, at least we get another game in this series. Fnatic managed to pull themselves together and give us another game and their first victory of the series. Let's take a look at picks and bans. We had a lot to say about Fnatic's picks and bans, so what should we praise them for in this instance? First up, I do see the Rakan, which was mentioned, so a bit more engaged, and it seems like they completely changed their game plan. Amazing.
They just played what they're known to play, like just aggressive champions that can actually impact the game and not just like sit back, relax, and see what happens. So I like the Rakan pick as a first pick, opening it up. I like the Camille last pick actually into the Gnar, just actually like bringing the aggression to top lane, even if it didn't work out. Like sOAZ is such a playmaker that putting him on something that is actually not Shogath because it was banned is good for them, because sOAZ has always been like Fnatic's almost like a catalyst where he jumps in, he initiates the team fight, and he's able to do so. And the amount of plays he made on the map was pretty incredible actually.
Also, I felt like in the game we had the same early start where Broxah gets a good first
Goes
gank
top lane.
with the Elise, but then he went
Goes
top
top
lane
lane.
after, and they just completely like ignore there's an enemy jungler and mid laner roaming, and they lose 2 kills and they kind of lose the early lead. And this draft though was like, if they get to around 25 minutes and they haven't like secured at least a big teamfight win or a Baron, it's looking tough.
Yeah,
It's tough then, because you're like, there are so many big tanks on the side of Misfits that would be really hard to kill, and then the Xayah as the reliable damage dealer. But the fact that Fnatic then actually did not go super late into the game and found some of those big fights gave them a big enough lead to then keep forcing it. I'm just going to say this. I don't understand pro players sometimes. Jesiz banned the Rakan twice in the first 2 games. Was talking about it on the desk about how it was a little bit risky playing Rakan. You know, maybe don't want to play it. Then he picks it as a first pick. And man, he executed these fights perfectly. I'm just like, just play it. Just play engage. It's so good, because then Broxah doesn't have to be the main engage. sOAZ doesn't need to be the main engage. He can be the main engage.
And he probably also is a big shot caller then in those moments when they need to engage. Well, of course,
And
we're not
Rakan
in
is
the
overpowered.
comms.
I'm just going to add that in.
Rakan is overpowered?
Rakan is super overpowered.
All right, let's take a look at some fights where Rakan has a huge influence. And as you say, it's much easier for Fnatic to find those fights, but they did absolutely have to find this one because Misfits were on the Baron.
Yeah, Misfits was on the Nash. For some reason, they decided to start it where, like, at this point of the game, they don't have to force anything. They just have to control the map, keep scaling. But the answer by Fnatic is engaging on them and actually like finding the right fight at the right time, and actually like abusing the fact that Misfits is doing a mistake is something that's so
Alphari
crucial at this specific point in the game. And Alphari hinting it a bit gives some gold extra, but it's more about recognizing that the enemy did a mistake and punishing it. And that's something that Fnatic has always been good at.
Yeah, I think I think Misfits kind of didn't figure out what their win condition was.
Yeah.
It almost felt like they were saying, guys, we need to force something now. Like, we should force because we want to fight, even though they're actually the team who wants to wait and play late game. So it was really odd. Also, there was a mini Gnar still on the way to Mega Gnar from a far side when Maxlore body slammed in against the Syndra. I think Maxlore actually at first wanted to just try and bait a flash from Syndra.
Yeah.
And then when Caps didn't flash instantly, he was like, wait a minute.
What did I do?
You were supposed to flash someone and you didn't. And then the turnaround was like, damn, he's getting caught out now. Mega Gnar came in later from there, and the whole fight was just a mess for Misfits, and that lost the game. Like, that one fight lost the game.
That lost the game, and then all the subsequent fights we saw were also in the favor of Fnatic. We're going to take a look at one more. Another good engage. They secure 3 kills, and we pretty much felt it coming, right? There was a chance that it still tilted the other way
Jesiz
around,
here.
but they played it very well.
I mean, you have, like, at this point in the game, like, Misfits had to kind of, like, decide whether or not they want to go for the Nash and actually try to contest it. Obviously, in retrospect, it was kind of the bad choice because, and then forcing them to basically, like, have an engage that they didn't want to have and forcing a fight that they didn't want to have at that specific point in time. So, Fnatic just setting up the Nash perfectly and abusing another mistake by Misfits, overextending and punishing it.
It was very good to see Fnatic, though, once they finally got the lead towards the late game, really, like, push the advantage.
A Fnatic game.
Yeah, like, this is more what we expected from Fnatic coming into this series. Them actually able to really execute, especially in the mid to late game as well in some of these fights. But they drafted a more early game composition. They got the one fight they needed. Funny enough, actually set up by Misfits. Yeah. So going into game 4, while I want to believe in momentum and Fnatic now, you know, swinging right back in, I really feel like Misfits could actually draft exactly the same.
And win.
And then be like, hey guys, remember 20 minutes, you don't have to rush Baron. Maybe ban the Camille instead of a severe or choke.
But it's about keeping a cool head. Now, Misfits have selected...
That's the thing.
They've selected blue side first time in this series, so they're definitely... Maybe the tilt is there. And the big question is, you know, Fnatic, you say, oh, I don't know if this will be the swing, but these are the kind of moments and the kind of games that do swing series like this. And if you think of the wealth of experience of Fnatic, you'd think they'd be able to close it out. We've been asking the question, is Misfit playing above their level? Now maybe it gets in their own head. So who has the mental fortitude to close it out? Do you guys still see it changing and Misfits taking the next game?
I honestly think that Misfits would take the next game, simply because like they will recognize, and I think Maxlore is a big part of it. Like, because I respect him as a player, he's really smart about the game. That he will recognize, man, we just did one screw up in the game. We actually just lost one team fight that we shouldn't have taken, and next game around we'll just outdraft them again, have more strength in the late game, and win the game.
Also, by going to blue side, they can target ban a little bit more. Red side is somewhat locked in banning Kalista and most of the time Tristana at the moment. So if they, let's say, they can actually first pick Rakan right now.
And ban Alistar or something.
Yeah, something like that, you know, or even give Alistar over and see if Jesiz even wants to play it, but at least take Rakan for Ignar. He can play it really well. and then suddenly you remove one of the parts that were very successful for Fnatic in this game. So it's still in Misfits' favor because they have another game as well to figure out what is the perfect draft now to beat Fnatic again.
Are we seeing Ashe again?
I mean,
it was a
they're
big
on
point
red
of contention beforehand. And then they won the game, and now everyone's like, "Oh, it's fine." But you know,
I think because of the red side, I think we'll see Xayah. Like,
probably will be Xayah. Yeah. Probably will be Xayah.
all right, we'll see what happens for Fnatic's side. This is the big test. They need to win again in Game 4 to keep their hopes of a final spot alive. Join us as we hit the Rift after the break.
From IgNar, but it's Hans Sama they find the damage onto. He's got flash, instantly uses it, repel, up and out, and there is first blood. And there is nowhere for Broxah to go. And the spider is gonna get squished. Everything burned. The barrel knocks him back in. He is going nowhere, trying to get back to that base. But Maxlore says not today. Featherstorm comes out, but sOAZ dodges the damage as he takes down IgNar, and everything is falling apart for the Misfits. This is the fight they needed, but Alphari trying to salvage it, but no.
Good job, guys. That's Fungo.
PowerOfEvil is gonna get popped down. Rekkles, they just have more damage, and it's shining through. Jesiz on the front. Alphari and Mega trying to push him back, but sOAZ pins him against the wall. And a Fnatic bearing down on them. There is nothing you can do. Down they go, and Fnatic stay alive to force Game 4.